let's talk about Mercury going into retrograde, because if we do this prep work well, we are going to make it so much easier and so much lighter than if we just wait till the last second and try to get everything done. Okay? Hi, this is Ruth Theresa with One Inspiring Woman. I'm an intuitive psychic medium here in the Sugar Land area. That's just outside of Houston. I love saying that because I love my area. So let's talk about it. All of our prep work has to be done by November 25th. So it's kind of like November 25th, we have to have everything, all of our prep work ready to go. So it doesn't mean that it's bad, but it's one of those, when Mercury in pre-shadow energy starts, it starts to kind of get like heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier. So it's one of those, then when it's in full retrograde mode, it's the heaviest. It's going to be the hardest to deal with. And then on the other side, it's going to start getting lighter and lighter and lighter and lighter. And because this one is in two different signs, you're going to have almost feel like you're in retrograde, out of retrograde, in retrograde, out of retrograde, just because of the way of its energy. Doesn't mean anything bad, but it just means let's get prepared for all of this. So I love getting prepared for Mercury in retrograde, because one of the things that's most important to understand about Mercury is that the more prep work you do, the easier it is, bar none. So one of the things I think is kind of like interesting is that this one's been coming like right at the end of the year, and we've got like going into pre-shadow mode on Thanksgiving Day, which is kind of like, we've already got a lot of stuff going on. And then it's going to be in retrograde through Christmas, you know, and we've got all of the Christmas parties and holiday parties and year-end parties and all that kind of stuff. It's in full retrograde mode during that time frame. And then January 1, it goes into pre-shadow mode, so then it's going to start getting easier and lighter and kind of easier to deal with. So it's one of those, we have to deal with this. It's just the lineup of the planets. It's just something we have to do. So let's work on like making it the easiest for us, right? Let's make it easy on us. So kind of, we've got all of these plans going on. So we already kind of know, you know, unless you're like 18 years of age, you kind of know what everything is going to be happening or how things are going to be happening. But it's one of those, let's get ready for all of this. So get your calendar prepped and ready to go. I myself start my newsletters from like, December 5th, are the ones that started like, that's just going out on the 15th of November through December 1, December 15th, January 1, January 15th. I get those all started. I may not get them to the finish stage, but I'm going to at least start them and kind of change and modify some stuff and put some things that I know I'm going to be putting out there. So that's just kind of like I'm getting prepped. The next one is getting things aligned the way you want them to be. And so to me, it's kind of like, what is it that you haven't wanting to been thinking about? What is it that you really want to change or review or do something differently? One of the best things to do during Mercury in retrograde is to clean out your closets. It's a great time to start cleaning out your closets and kind of getting rid of some of the stuff that you've been holding on to, that sort of thing. But it also kind of gives you that like kind of mindless task of things of like, what else do I want to do? What else do I want to deal with this energy? So this is kind of that thing of like, let's clean out the closet of our mind. And what are the things that we thought, man, I really messed this up, or wow, that was really great. How can I repeat this? All of those things start going on in our mind. Now, one of the things that Mercury is known for, Mercury is a planet of communication, all communication, text messaging, emailing, you know, phone messages, all of that sort of thing. So we need to be careful when we are communicating with other people that we are really kind of communication in the clearest possible way. And so I often tell people like face-to-face communication is the best, because if you were telling me something I don't like, you'd be like, oh, I can tell by her face that she doesn't understand what I just said, so now I need to explain it differently. But if I send a text message and you look at it and you're like, I can't see that. I can't see your face. I can't go, they didn't understand it, so I need to send it differently. Or an email the same way. The further you get from face-to-face communication, the more likely you are to have miscommunications. So before you send it, make sure you look at it and read it and kind of like, am I sending this clear? Does it make sense? And don't assume that the other person is in the same place. Like, hey, we were talking about this last week, instead of like, hey, let's do this for a vacation. It's like, where'd this come from? Like all of a sudden this came out of left field. make sure you're talking to the other person. Make sure you're kind of getting that clear communication with them of like, yes, this is what we want to do. I often tell people kind of this is the astrology of it, is we need to get our head wrapped around Mercury in kind of all of its details and understanding how this planet moves forward. It's all about kind of like the energy of it. When it is in direct, moving direct, it is all about our mental energy, kind of like keeping like technology going and transportation and how we talk to each other, how other people communicate with each other, and everything kind of runs smoothly. But when it goes in retrograde 3 to 4 times a year, we start having more and more issues. And it's because not only we are having miscommunications, other people might be having miscommunications. And so that makes it a little bit like more awkward. And it's like, then you're kind of like, oh, him and his wife are having miscommunications, or they are having miscommunications, or the pilot is having problems talking to the ground crew to tell them what they need to do. So it's kind of like, that's where we start going like, oh, there were already miscommunications here, and now this has only made it worse. It hasn't made it any better. So it's like, yes, we've got to get this really clear. And when we have these mishaps, this miscommunication, the transportation's kind of getting like all delayed or glitchy or whatever it is, it's a really great time to communicate very well. This you know what I'm saying, like me missing my flight was horrible and now we need to do something else. But it's one of those like clearing that up, like I didn't hear the announcement, I didn't hear this, or I didn't hear that. That kind of like gets us clear on the same page of like, we've got to make some changes, reset, what do we need to do, and listening to it clearly. Don't get in the mindset of like, I just need to be complaining about everything else and everybody else will fall into place. It's not the way it needs to be done. This is a great time to encourage us to really relax, take things easy, take a rest, get prepared for all the possible scenarios. And I don't mean like crazy scenarios. I mean like if you're traveling, have an extra long big book to read, or make sure that you have all your charging cables for your iPad, your phone, or whatever it is, or whatever device you're going to be doing to kind of keep yourself entertained. I myself love people watching, so I'm usually entertained all on my own. Make sure that you have a few extra dollars in your purse, not just credit cards, because sometimes those can have issues as well, or debit cards. Making sure you have like an extra $20. So it's like, I can buy a bottle of water, I can get a bag of chips or whatever it is, and I can be okay while other things are going on. This makes it easier. A lot of times when people fly in during Mercury in retrograde, what I usually say is, text me as soon as you land, and that's when I'll leave my house, because they could have delays in flight. I was waiting for a friend a couple of months ago and their flight got diverted somewhere else. So it was like, okay. So I was like, I just waited until she texted me and she was like, I'm sorry, I'm 4 hours late. I'm like, I am totally okay. I was at home doing my work, doing my thing. You text me when you land. And she was like, yes. And I was like, not a problem. I'll be there in 30 minutes. That's the best way to do it. Don't panic over it. Don't like, oh my gosh. Just work through it. It makes it so much easier. Now, because this Mercury in retrograde has Capricorn and Sagittarius energy in it, it's going to feel different for each one, where you might feel Capricorn stronger and someone else might feel Sagittarius a little bit stronger. It doesn't matter. It's just where it is in your charts, and it's just part of it. And so this is a great time to kind of like bring out things that you want to talk about. If you're having a hard time, say that like, hey, I need a few minutes break. Make sure that you're communicating what you require from other people. That makes it so much easier. Instead of, it's going crazy. Make sure that you're doing those communications. And I will tell you, this is a great time to expect delays, all that kind of stuff, and just kind of go with the flow, and making it easier, and not always being the one that's everybody's going like, oh my gosh, she's complaining or he's complaining again. That's not where we want to be with any of this. It makes it much harder. So get your calendar prepared, get what you want. If you're having to travel during this time frame, I know a lot of people that travel for Thanksgiving and Christmas, make sure that you are making those arrangements, making sure that everybody knows what the leg of the, where we're at, every leg of it, and make sure that we're just kind of taking time for ourselves and kind of rethinking where we've been in the past, where we want to be in the future, and that will give us plenty of mind and energy to kind of just like think through all of this. Make sure that you're prepared for Mercury in retrograde. I thank you so much for joining me today, and I know that we'll be talking again soon.